Hello, Afro Tech. My name is Jay Taylor. I am a Senior Director of Product for the Platform Engineering team at Peloton Interactive. So I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys about my story, about how to become a senior engineering leader without a bachelor's degree, because I don't have a bachelor's degree. There's a lot of things that you'll hear when it comes to thinking about transitioning to a career in tech. A lot of that stuff is great, but I've got a different story I want to tell you. I want to tell you about my journey. I've been a hiring manager at Microsoft, Salesforce, Twitter, Expedia. So I have a perspective I want to share with you. I want to tell you about my journey and tell you about what I did. And I'm going to give you some tips, what you can do to kind of join the industry. As far as agenda, so what I want to talk about first is we're going to go over my story. We're going to talk about the problem that people are trying to solve. So I want you to think a little bit broader about what you want. What are your goals? What's the problem that you're trying to solve? And then there's three kind of key areas that I want to focus in on. So one is the way that you think, so a mindset shift. Another is the power of your brand. So there's two different types of brand I'm talking about, personal brand and company brand. And then the last section, I'm going to talk about how to hire yourself. Now, a lot of that kind of ties into my story, so I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. But I want to give you some concrete tips that I think you should take to heart because they were substantial for me and they're not the traditional things that you might think. So let's get started. So, and of course, at the very end, we'll do a Q&A. All right, so let's do my story. So before I landed a career in tech, I was actually an office assistant. I was making copies at a copy machine back when we used to do that. So I remember spending hours out of the day making thousands of copies. And I was a young dad. So I had two daughters at the time. I was probably 25-ish, kind of mid-20s. But I wanted more for my kids. You know, I wanted to take them to Disneyland. I wanted to take them to Hawaii. And I didn't grow up in a household where we did that. And so I was trying to get a job in tech. I was always super interested, but I believed what other people believe, that you had to have a bachelor's degree in order to get into tech. I remember my dad even told me one time, he's like, you should work for Microsoft. And I remember thinking, no way, Microsoft probably has like the smartest people in the industry. There's no way that I could ever work for Microsoft. Well, lo and behold, I have worked for Microsoft, and there are a lot of smart people there. However, most people, we can qualify, we can work there. Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit more about how that worked. So for me, I was an office assistant. Nobody would hire me. Like I would go out and I would try to get jobs, and they would actually tell me exactly what I was thinking that they would say, no, we're not going to hire you because you don't have a bachelor's degree. What I found is there are certain industries that are like that. But the reality is the top tech companies in the world that are actually driving, business, they don't require it, because at the end of the day, it's about results. So a bachelor's degree is one type of credential that could mean that you're qualified, but there's still no guarantee. So at the end of the day, it's about your ability to execute and your skill level, right? So I was getting rejections. Like I couldn't get a job. They were telling me, you don't have a bachelor's degree. So I said, you know what? I know I can do this job. So I actually started my own software consulting company. So I started my own software company. I was probably about 27 years old. And I didn't know much of what I was doing, right? Like I was still learning. I was talking to people. I was trying things out, but I was learning. But I went and I did it. And I ran that business for about 6 years. I was able to find another co-founder, and we are not co-founder. He was actually the founder, but I built his engineering team, and we got 35 million in venture capital funding. And that's kind of what skyrocketed my tech career. So being an entrepreneur, doing startups, great way to get experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that was significant for me. So VenScreen was a great startup. TrueDev was my company. But then eventually, this is when the financial crisis hit, probably 2009, 2010, like the world was taking another hit, like kind of what's been happening lately in the last couple of years. So when that happened, this is when I transitioned to Expedia. So what's interesting about that is the first time I applied at Expedia, I actually got rejected. Like I'd never done like a big tech company interview before. And so I remember like one of the VPs, they actually tried to make me do math in my head. And I don't know about you guys, but I am not good with doing math in my head. So he was even trying to make it super easy for me. Like he's trying to go by tens, but I'm not good at that. So I botched the interview. I didn't know what I was doing. What was interesting though, is that maybe, I don't know, 9 months later or so, I came back and I took a temporary job. Now, this was a 3-month contract role. And this is maybe a little known fact, but one of the easiest ways to get into a tech company, a bigger tech company, or even a branded company, is through contract roles. And so I went and interviewed for a 3-month contract role. So the bar for a contract role is actually much lower because the obligation from the company is a lot lower too. And they typically need resources right away. So it's a lot easier actually to get those kind of roles. So I did well in the interview. I was able to pass. Now it was a 3-month contract. And so I wanted to prove that I deserved a seat at Expedia. So I finished that 3-month contract in 2 weeks. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to prove a point. But instead of saying, okay, hey, boss, I'm done with the job. What do you want me to do next? That's not what I did. I consistently built relationships around the company, and I just started doing more work. I kept an entrepreneurial mindset. And instead of asking my boss what he'd like me to do, I went and found the work. So this is really important to kind of think about, right? When you are taking a contract role, or maybe you have an internship, if you have an opportunity to network and meet people, you have an opportunity to show your worth, and that's important. So I finished that 3-month contract in 2 weeks, and I started doing other things. I started talking about other projects and looking for other problems that I could solve. And eventually, one of the other managers saw what I was doing, and she wanted to hire me. And so I got my first full-time role at a big tech company. But what's cool about that is that she actually let me write my own job description, because she wasn't asking for me to fill a role. She was interested in me. And so, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you got to have an entrepreneurial, proactive approach to the opportunities that you have. Don't wait to be told what to do. Okay, so that's what I did for a while. And so I did that. I was at Expedia for about 3 years. And what was really cool, I got the full-time role. I actually helped build 3 different engineering organizations for Expedia. New capabilities, new teams, new functions. And mind you, I had never had a job in big tech before, right? And I was denied initially. So if you ever get denied because you apply and maybe you don't do well, never take that personal. It doesn't mean you're not qualified, okay? The interview process is tough. It's complicated. Like, how do you really evaluate somebody's good or bad or future potential in a 45-minute conversation? You can't, okay? It's hard, right? So if you ever get rejected for an interview, that doesn't mean you're not qualified, okay? I was rejected, but I eventually did get in, and I was very influential at Expedia. It was a great experience for me. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right. So part 2 of my story. So I felt like I was outgrowing the experiences at Microsoft, or excuse me, not Microsoft, at Expedia. So this is when I went to Microsoft. So Expedia, I was there 3 years. Then I was like, okay, let me try something different. I wanted a bigger company. So this is when I went to Microsoft. I wanted to try. Remember, I said before, my dad said, go to Microsoft. And I was like, nah. But at this time, I kind of realized when I was at Expedia for a while, like, I can do this. I can do this. It's not as complicated as maybe you might think, right? It's not as unattainable as you might think. So I was able to get into Microsoft. Now, why would Microsoft pay attention to me? Well, part of that is because sometimes you have to take baby steps to get into the bigger companies, right? Microsoft respected Expedia as a brand. And so it was kind of like a gateway job to get into Microsoft. So I was at Microsoft for about 2.5 years. Now, I got a lot of stories and details about how that went. But again, like, I carried that entrepreneurial spirit. I was on the Power BI team. I helped build a web engineering team for Microsoft. Again, like Microsoft, one of the top companies in the world, super easy to get intimidated. But you know what? I did it. And it's not because there was something special about me. Simple things like being proactive and understanding the opportunities that are in front of you can have such a substantial impact in your career. So I was there for 2.5 years. And then again, I wanted a different experience. So I went to Salesforce, which at the time, of course, was also a leader in the CRM space. So I went to Salesforce. I was a director of data and infrastructure there. So I helped build out some of their data cataloging services, brand new services, building teams again. I love building brand new things at high growth companies, right? And then when I was at Salesforce, this is when Twitter came knocking, what's cool about my career and what I want to kind of teach you guys is that I didn't apply for any of these jobs, right? Like, because of some of the steps I'm going to tell you about, they came looking for me. So Twitter came knocking. They said, hey, Jay, we'd love you to run developer experience at Twitter. So I was at Twitter for about 8 months or so. I was a GPM, so a group product manager at Twitter. And I was going to stay there. I was happy, right? And this is when Peloton kept knocking. They came knocking and they said, hey, we'd like you to run product for platform for us. And again, like, I didn't apply for these jobs, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that came about. But here I am. I'm a senior director at Peloton. Lots of opportunity and growth. So I want to talk about a little bit about how that happened. Oh, and I just real quick before I go on. So while I was at Salesforce, this is when I started a community called mentormesh.io. So I love mentoring people because, again, I was an office assistant, no bachelor's degree, right? Like, there are things that you can achieve that you don't realize. A lot of people will think that you need certain credentials, like a bachelor's degree, in order to achieve, certain levels in your career. And it's just not true. Like, those are tools, right? But at the end of the day, it's your grit, it's your determination, it's your ability to network that becomes super important. So let's talk more about that. So that was my story really quick. And let's talk about the problem. So you want a great career. You want a better career. Everybody's a little bit different, right? And people tell you, go get a bachelor's degree. And now, because bachelor's degrees, maybe aren't doing, they take too long sometimes, right? Maybe they cost too much. And so now there's boot camps. So people are like, go to boot camps, go be an expert, do all this research, right? And I've mentored a lot of people. There's about 1,600 people that are in my Mentor Mesh network. And a lot of them are college grads. A lot of them are boot camp grads, right? So they go out and they do all this stuff because this is what everyone's saying. Like, because it makes sense, right? Like, you get educated. Now you should be qualified. That's how it should be. But sometimes the experience is not that. You get all these credentials, you go out and you get your master's degree, you get your PhD, and you still can't get a job. And it doesn't make any sense, right? So what'll happen is that people will do that. They'll interview. Now it's like, let's spruce up my resume. Let's get really good at that stuff, and let's put our name in the system. Now you are applying for a job that everyone else is applying for. So I've been a hiring manager, again, like many, many top tech companies. When I open a job rec, I get 500 applications. Now, is it reasonable for me to look over 500 applications? It's not, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. I've got a day job, right? So a lot of times you're getting screened by a recruiter, right? So even if you're super qualified, I may never see your resume. How heartbreaking is that? Like, you went through all this time and effort to get qualified, and I may never see your resume. So this might be where you are. Or maybe you're in a job and your boss is telling you, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then you work really hard, but for some reason you still can't get the promotion that you deserve. Like, you're working, but it's not working for you. Like, you did what they told you to do, but you're still not getting the results. Super common scenario. That's the problem. Okay. So next time. So what's the goal? So this is what I want everybody to kind of think about for a second. Let's abstract a little bit. A lot of people want to get a job in tech. Why do they want to get a job in tech? Pays well, high demand, right? So let's think about that for a minute. So let me tell you my goals. My goals were never around any specific domain or, some specific area. It's very simple for me. I want to do whatever I want. I want to have the best pay in the industry. I want to have the best flexibility. That's it. I've got 4 daughters now. I mentioned I had 2 earlier in my career. I got 4 now. They need me. I need to be home. So I need to be flexible. I need a job that will pay well, but allow me to be with my kids, to raise my family, right? Now, is that possible? Can you have all of those things? Yes, you can. I'd like to think that I've achieved that. And that's a lot more doable than you think. But let's think higher than that, right? Because a lot of times people will be like, I want to be a data scientist. Why do you want to be a data scientist? I'm not saying it's not a great career. It is, but why? Most of the time, what people want, again, is kind of like what I said. They want good money. They want to be in demand. They want flexibility. And they've heard that those things come from data science. And they're like, yeah, I'll be a data scientist, right? But think higher than that, okay? Think about those real goals, because I want you to stop thinking about the specific domain. Because in my experience, if you're able to gain trust in a company, you can actually transition very easily across domains. I've been a BI analyst. I've been an engineering manager. I've been a program manager. I've been a product manager, right? I've had like every title in the industry, but am I fundamentally a different person? No. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think you should focus on, because the game is trust. The game is not picking your domain. The game is trust. So I guess real quick, just to finish off this slide, I don't apply for jobs. I think it's important instead to be in demand. I don't apply for jobs. Every job that I told you about, Microsoft, Salesforce, Twitter, Peloton, I did not apply for. They came after me. And when they come after you, the conversation is very different, right? So, and then if you make certain choices, your career starts to become an autopilot. I don't have to worry about my next opportunity. My next opportunity will show up. So, okay, next slide. So, right out the gate, pro tip. A lot of people say, do what you love. I mean, I get it. The reason they say do what you love is because they want you to be happy. And I get that. We all want to be happy, right? What I found, though, is what's better, in my opinion, is to cater towards your strengths. Know yourself. Cater towards your strengths and do what's in demand, right? So, let's say you love baking, but people have a gluten allergy. It doesn't matter. Like, so what if you love to bake? If people in the industry don't want bakers, that's not a good position for you, right? So care about what's in demand. Now, to kind of address the happiness thing, what I found actually is that who you report to, your direct manager, to me, has had the largest impact on my happiness as a person. So care about that person. Who's your boss, right? If you can't see eye to eye with them, if you're not flowing really well with them, it doesn't matter if you like your job. Like they're going to make your job unbearable, right? So if happiness is what you seek, care about who your manager is, but at the same time, if you cater towards your strengths and you do what you're good at, you're probably going to like your job too. So I'm just going to throw that out there. That's just practical advice, but I wanted to start there. All right, so mindset shift. We're going to talk about the first thing. So mindset is more important than your expertise. And let me give you an example. So I was given an offer by Microsoft Xbox xCloud to run their game streaming service. Brand new, like online. It's like the Netflix of gaming. I knew nothing about gaming, really. I mean, I did like side stuff, but nothing professionally, right? Didn't know anything about professional gaming. Never did anything in streaming. So knew nothing about streaming. Yet they wanted me to be a thought leader for Microsoft in the gaming industry, even though I had no expertise. Why is that? The thing about tech is it actually gives you an opportunity, right? Like you can't always be an expert because tech changes too fast, right? So a lot of times what companies are looking for is people that can deal with ambiguity, right? They can take situations and learn quickly and come up with a strategy and execute. That has nothing to do with the domain expertise. Yet, when people want to transition jobs, what do? They go get educated, right? They go become experts and they think that that's it. Sure, understanding the domain is important, but that's not always the most important thing, because in tech, you can't always be a domain expert. But can you show evidence that you can take ambiguous problems and be successful? Because that's what high growth companies want. Okay, so second point, entrepreneurial mindset, right? Don't wait to be told what to do. Most people do. Like, boss, what do you want me to do? Boss, what would you like me to do? No, I was an entrepreneur. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to network, and I'm going to find quick wins, and I'm going to find things to go do and solve, right? Do that. Be proactive. There is nothing better than an employee that will just go get it. Go get it. Don't wait for me to tell you what to do. And you'd be surprised. Like, again, like I've worked for a lot of top tech companies, and most people are not like this. They're still waiting for their boss to tell them what to do. So don't do that. Go out there and find the problems, talk to people. All you have to do is build relationships and ask them, what's wrong? What hurts? What do you wish would be different, right? You do that and you build relationships across a company, you start to see themes. You take those themes and you start thinking about, well, what can I do? How can I create alignment and quick wins? Be an entrepreneur, go out and solve those problems. Most people aren't doing that. It'll make you stand out. That's how I got my first role at Expedia. So next point is influence without authority. This is so big, right? Most big tech companies, a lot of the people that you work with don't report to you, which means you have no direct authority over them. So your ability to convince people to work with you is invaluable, most important skill, right? And how do you do that? A lot of people will say that. How do you do that? Well, the mistake that a lot of people make is that, you know, you have your own charter, your own things that you need to do. And you meet with people and you're like, hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z. Can you help me? Now, you can do that, but you know what's better than that? Instead of talking about what you need, when you meet somebody for the first time, take some time to get to know them. Get to know them, care about their career, care about their goals, care about their team, and try to find ways to help them. Now, let's say you do that, right? You're meeting all these people, you're helping them, and that is your purpose. You are building trust and a reputation across the company. You do that for a while first. Now, what happens when you need something? You got people, and those people are going to come rally behind you. Why? Because you were selflessly giving of your time first. So that's what I tell people to do. Build trust, build relationships, build rapport. That matters. It matters because at the end of the day, you don't need to be the expert if the experts are willing to come to you, right? You bring them with you, because that's how you succeed as a company. That's how you succeed in your career. If you can bring people and alignment with you, because that's what leadership is. Leadership is coaching, mentorship, alignment, right? That is what leadership is. So if you get good at influencing without authority, it's golden. That's how you do it. Now, another thing that I'll bring up is aggressively pursue growth. Now, what does that mean? Now, if you have somebody that has 10 years experience, let's say they've been at a company for 10 years, do they have 10 years of experience? Or do they have 1 year of experience 10 times? If you feel like you are stagnant in your position, that's dangerous. Don't do that. Growth is what matters, especially in the tech industry. The cool thing about tech is that because technology's changed so much. What's hot today, what the expert architects love today is not going to be the same tomorrow. So if you're a learner and you care about what's happening in the industry, there's an opportunity for you to be the next expert, because a lot of the old kind of dormant technology is going to start to fade. Here's an opportunity for you. So for those that learn, that go get it and aggressively pursue growth, here's an opportunity. So, and if you're not getting the opportunities that you want out of your current company, you can explore, right? Like this is not, back in the day where you had to be with the company for 20, 30 years. The reality is a lot of the top tech companies in the world haven't existed for 30 years. So that's not a reasonable thing to ask for. That type of loyalty, I'm just saying, top tech companies in the world, you want to pursue growth, always pursue growth. All right. So we're going to go to the power of brand. So sometimes people will try to get a job and they're super qualified, but they're not getting hired. Like, what do you do with that, right? So sometimes the problem is simply because nobody knows who you are. Like you're out there applying, but you're just throwing your resume into a pit of 500 other resumes, right? Nobody knows you. So you're just like this stranger and you're out there just throwing your resume everywhere. So here's what I suggest that you should do. LinkedIn. All of my jobs for the last 10 years came from LinkedIn, period. Recruiters or hiring managers reached out to me on LinkedIn. That's it. I didn't do anything. I didn't go out soliciting, right? So what I would say is your LinkedIn profile is more important than your resume. It is. Peloton doesn't actually, I don't think they've ever actually seen my resume, but they've seen my LinkedIn profile, right? So that being said, here's the thing. 800 million or so people on LinkedIn, but only 1% of those people actually post. And you might say, well, what am I going to post on LinkedIn? That's weird, right? Like, what am I going to post? People are on LinkedIn. Say things about your journey, share things that you're learning, share experiences that you had, share your story. Now, why do you do that? Because people love authenticity. They love to connect with real people. And if you do that on LinkedIn, guess who else is on LinkedIn? Recruiters, hiring managers, hundreds of millions of them are on LinkedIn. So the more people you connect with, the more people have access to your profile. So when I look at your LinkedIn profile, is it obvious to me what type of job you want? So think about what your profile says. That's your personal marketing page, right? So recruiters pay thousands of dollars every year to get access to LinkedIn people, right? So I can't overemphasize the importance of LinkedIn. Meet people, network, know people. Everybody that you want to be like, everybody that you want to learn from, they're on LinkedIn. Now, the thing is, what I would say is go connect with people. The mistake that a lot of people make is that they'll throw a resume at somebody. They'll say, here's my resume. I'm looking for a job. I wish I could work with you. Okay, you could do that. But if you don't know this person, the first time you talk to them, you shouldn't be asking them for a favor, right? That's what you're doing when you're giving them a resume and saying, can I have a job? Instead, be interested in them. Be interested in their career. Ask them for a coffee chat and don't give them your resume. Just get to know them, because the purpose of the conversation is to build your network. That's the purpose. So go out there, build your network, be interested in other people. Eventually, it will come around. They already know that you want to work potentially with them. That's why you reached out. They know that already. So just be interested in them. That is the key. You have a personal relationship, you build that with people, you build a network over time, those doors will open. That is how this works. And that is the best way for you to get into any company. And then your company brand actually says a lot about you. Like, people will make assumptions from about you because you worked for a specific brand. So sometimes, remember I said earlier about getting contract roles to get into some of these big brand companies. If you work for Microsoft, people will make assumptions about you simply because you worked for Microsoft. If you work for a big branding company, they assume that you've worked high complexity, matrixed organizations, high scale, right? Because a lot of the scale that you work with in these companies is much larger than your average company. And so they're going to make those assumptions about you. So sometimes getting in the right brand will autopilot your career. Because again, interviewing is hard. And so they make so many assumptions about you. So a lot of times, big tech companies or big brands love to hire from other big brands. And why is that? Because they're going to immediately think, if this person was good enough for Microsoft, they're good enough for Twitter. Because at the end of the day, you only really know if somebody's good, because that's relative, if you've worked with them. Referrals, super important. Company brand can be very important, right? It can help skyrocket the next phase of your career. So for my last slide, hire yourself. So remember, there was a point in my career where nobody wanted to hire me. Well, hire yourself. A lot of times when you go to boot camps or other type of educational programs, they tell you to work on a portfolio. And I have a little bit different take on that. So you could build a portfolio, and it's a great way to showcase your skills, but just take it a step further. Build a business. Go get the experience that you need. Nowadays, because of things like cloud computing, you can build a business if you spend the time to understand what you need to do, to learn the technology, to partner with other people. There is no excuse to not go out and get that experience. I think one mistake a lot of people make is that they will go out and apply for jobs and they can't get a job. But you can continue to learn. And why not go do it? Sometimes when you work for a bigger tech company, a lot of people will think that it's going to be so different, like there's going to be a specific way that you work. And, there's definitely some truth into that. But doing a startup, there's so many lessons that you will learn. Trying to build a business from the ground up is going to teach you things that a big tech company will not teach you. But you can take those lessons and apply that to your career as well. So there's no excuse. If you're not able to land a job, go start a business of your own. That's what I did. People were rejecting me. And so I started my own company. This is where imposter syndrome might step in, and you might be like, well, I'm not qualified and maybe I'm not good enough. And the reality is you put the time in, you put the work in, especially if it's a consulting company, you just need to know more than your client. So put the work in, put the effort in. 90% of what you need to learn is free and online. So if you're not gaining experience and getting better, that's a choice that you're making. And so if you have the time or you're looking to transition quickly, hire yourself. You don't need to work for someone in order to get relevant experience that will matter. Because even when you work for a big company, you're still typically working with a smaller set of people. So it's still at kind of that startup level sometimes, especially when you're working for a high-paced company. You're building brand new things that maybe they've never done before. And so it feels a lot like a startup if you continue to pursue high growth companies, which is what I would obviously recommend. So don't wait to get hired. Go do the experience, go do the work. All right. And then the last thing is, join a community. Sometimes when you're trying to transition careers, it can be hard because you're trying to troubleshoot problems, you're trying to do all this research, and maybe finding a mentor is very difficult, because that's also something that's very difficult to find sometimes. Somebody that's equally interested in your career growth. It's not easy, right? So join communities. That's one of the reasons why I created mentormesh.io, is because I want people to come join me. Like, let's level up together. It's a free community. Let's talk. Let's meet people. I told you to go start a business. There's people here that will start with you that are also interested: designers, engineers, developers. Go build something amazing together, right? So join a community, not just mine. There's Product Buds, there's Tech Pods. Just spend some time in Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you'll find these communities. Go meet people, because a lot of the people that you're going to meet are also going to be very successful in their career. And now you have a network. Now you know people. And again, trust is so important when it comes to being able to land opportunities. So just because somebody doesn't want to give you a job, that's okay. This world provides a lot of opportunities for those that are willing to see them and put the work and the time in. So go do that. So in conclusion, change the way that you think, right? Have an entrepreneurial mindset. Don't wait to be told what to do. You go find those problems. If you have opportunities, go get them, right? The power of your personal brand. Show your authentic self on LinkedIn. Hiring managers are there. Recruiters are there. They're watching on LinkedIn. They see you. Connect with people. Care about them, right? And then finally, if you're not getting the experience that you want, hire yourself and go do projects. Find people just like you. There are millions of them out there. You just have to be able to spend the time and be willing to spend the time to go meet them. So those are some top level things that I would definitely recommend. They've worked for me. I have countless stories I'd love to share. If you come join me in my network, happy to share those opportunities as well. But that's it. At the end of the day, it's about your skill. It's about your grit. It's your persistence. It's not just about credentials. So yes, a bachelor's degree might help you, but it is not required. And at the end of the day, especially as you hit to like to mid and senior levels in your career, nobody even asks anymore. It's about your skill, persistence, leadership, influencing without authority, your ability to create alignment and have people come with you. That's leadership, coaching, mentoring. There's so many other things that are more powerful. So a lot of people, many of you maybe, you might have imposter syndrome. You think maybe you can't do it. Well, I had humble beginnings too. I was making copies at a copy machine. And now I'm a senior director at Peloton, one of the most influential fitness brands in the industry. I'm super excited to be here. I would love for many of you to join me at Peloton, but this is doable. You just have to make the choice. The resources are available. But the question is, when things get difficult, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep pushing forward? Are you going to have that entrepreneurial spirit and find the work, meet people, connect with people, and be persistent? So that's what's going to get you ahead. And it's more important than many other things that you might have been told. So I hope many of you continue to push forward and aggressively pursue growth. So yeah, ready to take some questions, and hopefully you learned something out of this talk. Definitely would love to connect with all of you. So find me on LinkedIn, Jay Taylor, Peloton Interactive. Thank you for listening to the talk.